Her beloved husband is dead. They came for her sons next. We'll protect them, they took an oath. They promised they'd return soon. They lied. She never saw her 12- and 9-year-old boys again, not their faces, not their bodies. For the rest of her life she waited. Every young face in a crowd made her heart stop. But they never came home. She would never know if they were alive or dead. She would never hold them again. So Elizabeth Woodville, Queen of England, did what any desperate mother might do. She cursed those responsible, dark, terrible words calling upon God himself to punish the murderers. She wished that their male heirs would die young. It sounds like medieval superstition, doesn't it? Except, for the next 120 years, almost every male heir born to the family she cursed died before manhood. Infants die within days. Teenage princes struck down by mysterious illness. A dynasty that couldn't keep its sons alive. Was Elizabeth Woodville's curse real? Or is it just a coincidence? Or is there something darker no one wants to admit? Let's investigate what really happened to the Tudor sons. Welcome back to History Untold. I'm Alex, and together we'll uncover the hidden secrets of the past. If these untold stories speak to you, hit the like button and join our family. Let's step into the past together. The year is 1483. Elizabeth Woodville clutches her daughters in Westminster Abbey while her world burns outside. Her husband, King Edward IV, died suddenly 3 months ago. He was only 40. And now her sons, Edward, aged 12, and Richard, aged 9, have been taken to the Tower of London supposedly for their protection. Elizabeth knows better. She's watched her brother being executed. Her son from her first marriage was killed. Her family was stripped of power. And she knows who's behind it. Richard, Duke of Gloucester, her dead husband's own brother. The princes are seen less and less in the Tower than not at all. By summer's end, rumors spread through London like wildfire. The boys are dead, murdered, smothered in their sleep, buried somewhere beneath the Tower's stones. Elizabeth Woodville has lost everything. Her crown, her sons, her future. What she does next depends on which story you believe. If you've read Philippa Gregory's Cousins War series or watched The White Queen, you'll remember the scene. Elizabeth Woodville and her daughter Elizabeth of York by the River Thames speaking words of vengeance into darkness, calling down a curse. The murderers' male heirs will die. They will watch their sons being taken from them. Only daughters will survive to carry the cursed blood forward. A mother's grief transformed into a weapon. Did it work? Did she really wield such power, or was it just words born of sorrow? The fear was real. Both Elizabeth and her mother, Jacquetta of Luxembourg, had faced witchcraft accusations in their lifetimes. In 1469, Jacquetta stood trial for using spells, candles, pins, dark magic to make Edward IV fall in love with her daughter. She was acquitted, but the accusation stuck. Later, Elizabeth faced similar charges from enemies determined to destroy her family. These were weapons of politics, but people believed them. In medieval England, a beautiful, ambitious woman with unexpected power. Of course, she must be a witch. And then something strange happened. 40 years later, a duke believed that the curse was true. He stepped forward with evidence that made people stop and shiver. Nearly 40 years after the princes vanished, a powerful duke stands trial for treason in London. His name is Edward Stafford, 3rd Duke of Buckingham. His mother was Catherine Woodville, the sister of Queen Elizabeth Woodville. He's wealthy, well-connected, and he has royal blood in his veins. A dangerous combination when you're living under King Henry VIII. The charges against him include plotting to take the throne, but buried in the testimony is something stranger. Something that reveals what people actually believed at the time. The Duke of Buckingham, it was claimed, believed the Tudor family was cursed. Not just any curse, a specific one. He believed that God himself had damned the Tudor line because of a murder committed in 1499, the judicial execution of Edward, Earl of Warwick, an innocent young man with royal blood, killed on questionable treason charges. Buckingham had served on the jury that convicted Warwick. He'd watched an innocent man die. And he believed that murder brought God's wrath upon the Tudor kings. The curse, he supposedly said, explained why the Tudors couldn't keep their male heirs alive. Now was Buckingham telling the truth, Or were his enemies twisting his words to justify his execution? We'll never know for certain. He was beheaded in May 1521. But here's what matters. Someone in 1521 thought the idea of a curse on Tudor sons was believable enough to use in a treason trial. The concept was already in the air. People had noticed the pattern. So let's examine that pattern. Let's look at what actually happened to the male heirs of the Tudor dynasty, starting from the moment the princes in the tower disappeared. But the curse didn't start with the Tudors. King Richard III was the one who felt it first, the man who probably ordered the princes' deaths, who cleared his path to the throne over their small bodies. He had a son, too, Edward of Middleham, born around 1473, named Prince of Wales after Richard took the crown in April 1484. Less than a year after the princes vanished, Edward of Middleham died suddenly at Middleham Castle. He was about 10 years old. Richard III was devastated. Contemporary accounts say he showed complete sorrow. His wife, Anne Neville, never recovered. She died within a year in March 1485, probably tuberculosis. She was 28. Richard was urged to remarry, produce another heir. He refused. Some historians think he couldn't bear it. Others whisper he was afraid another son would die too. 5 months after Anne's death, Richard III faced Henry Tudor at Bosworth Field. Maybe it was just the chaos of war, the brutality of medieval politics, or maybe the curse had already begun its work. The Tudors' connection to the throne came through a secret marriage. Owen Tudor, a Welsh courtier with no title, no wealth, married Catherine of Valois, widow of King Henry V. They kept it hidden because Catherine risked losing everything. They had 2 sons who survived, Edmund and Jasper Tudor. Edmund married 12-year-old Margaret Beaufort. She had royal blood through John of Gaunt. In 1456, during the Wars of the Roses, Edmund was captured by Yorkist forces. Released, but he died shortly after, probably plague. Mid-20s. His pregnant teenage wife was alone. Margaret gave birth on January 28, 1457. The labor was so traumatic that she could never have children again. She was barely 13. Her son, Henry, was her only child, her whole world. The bloodline of Henry Tudor made him a threat to King Richard III, but Henry Tudor survived. Against all odds, through exile and danger, he survived. In 1485, he defeated Richard III at Bosworth Field. Henry became King Henry VII. To unite York and Lancaster, Henry married Elizabeth of York, daughter of Edward IV, daughter of Elizabeth Woodville. The same Elizabeth of York who, in Gregory's novels, helped her mother cast the curse. Did Elizabeth bring the curse into the Tudor family? They had 7 children: Arthur, Margaret, Henry, Elizabeth, Mary, Edmund, Catherine, 2 healthy sons, multiple daughters. The Tudor line looked strong. Then came 1499. Edward Plantagenet, Earl of Warwick, had been a prisoner most of his life, nephew of Edward IV and Richard III, the last legitimate male Plantagenet. His blood claim was stronger than Henry VII's, so Henry locked him in the Tower. The boy was about 10 when imprisonment began. By 1499, Warwick had been locked away for 14 years, possibly mentally disabled from isolation. Not plotting, not dangerous. But pretenders kept appearing. Henry VII was tired of it, tired of the threat, so he manufactured a treason case. Thin evidence, swift trial, predetermined verdict. November 28, 1499, Edward, Earl of Warwick, was beheaded, 24 years old. The public was horrified. Foreign ambassadors called it judicial murder. The Spanish, alarmed by Henry's ruthlessness, nearly cancelled Prince Arthur's marriage to Catherine of Aragon. The execution sent a clear warning. The Tudors would do whatever it took to secure their throne. Buckingham, on that jury, would carry the guilt forever. Now watch the dates. Prince Edmund Tudor was born in February 1499, months before Warwick's execution. Healthy baby. The 4th child of Henry and Elizabeth. He died June 1500, 16 months old. Cause unknown, possibly plague. Then Prince Arthur, the Golden Prince, born in 1486, raised to be king, handsome, intelligent, everything England needed. In November 1501, he married Catherine of Aragon in a magnificent ceremony. The future looked bright. They went to Ludlow Castle. March 1502, they both fell ill. Catherine survived. Arthur did not. He died April 2, 1502, 15 years old, probably sweating sickness, possibly tuberculosis. We don't know. Arthur's death shattered the Tudor succession plan. Years of preparation gone. Queen Elizabeth of York was devastated but practical. Still young enough for children, the dynasty needed another heir. She got pregnant. February 1503, she was in the Tower of London waiting to give birth. Something went wrong. Premature labor. On February 2nd, her 37th birthday, the baby, Catherine, was born weak, died within days. Elizabeth developed puerperal fever, childbed infection, often a death sentence in medieval England. She died February 11, 1503, on her 37th birthday, 9 days after giving birth. The cursemaker's daughter, if we believe Gregory's story, died trying to produce another Tudor son. Prince Edmund, 16 months, Prince Arthur, 15, baby Catherine, days, Queen Elizabeth, 37, all within 3.5 years of Warwick's execution. King Henry VII still had one son, Prince Henry, born 1491, but the king was broken. He wept constantly, refused to remarry despite his counselors' pleas, became suspicious, paranoid, obsessed with control instead of alliances. Henry VII died April 21, 1509, 52 years old, probably tuberculosis, 24 years on the throne, but the last 6 spent grieving. His son became King Henry VIII at 17. Confident, athletic, charming, he married Catherine of Aragon within weeks. She was 23, he was 17. Catherine got pregnant almost immediately. January 1510, she miscarried a daughter. Not unusual, she was young. By December 1510, pregnant again. Everyone was confident. Royal physicians assured them, court astrologers promised, God would bless this marriage. January 1, 1511, Catherine gave birth to a healthy baby boy, Henry, Duke of Cornwall. The kingdom exploded. Cannons fired. Bells rang across London. Henry VIII hosted a massive tournament. England had a male heir. 52 days later, the baby was dead. February 22, 1511, cause unknown, the tiny Duke of Cornwall gone. Catherine was shattered. She blamed herself. Medieval women were taught a child's death meant God was displeased. So Catherine punished herself, starved herself, destroyed her health trying to be worthy of carrying sons. She got pregnant again and again. 1513, stillborn son. 1514, stillborn son. 1516, Princess Mary born, healthy, surviving, a daughter. 1518, stillborn daughter. By 1518, Catherine was 33, pregnant at least 6 times. One living child, Mary, no sons. Henry started taking mistresses. The marriage cooled, and Henry wondered why couldn't he keep his sons. He read his Bible obsessively, found an answer. Leviticus 20:21, if a man marries his brother's wife, they shall be childless. In Tudor England, childless meant sonless. God was punishing him for marrying his brother's widow. Henry became convinced this was divine punishment, so he decided to fix it. Divorce Catherine, marry someone younger who could give him sons. Enter Anne Boleyn. Henry's pursuit of Anne is famous, the break with Rome, the Church of England established, monasteries destroyed, executions of those who opposed him, all to marry Anne, all to get a son. They married secretly in January 1533. Anne was already pregnant. Surely this child would be the son. September 7, 1533, Anne gave birth at Greenwich Palace. Healthy, strong, loud, a daughter, Elizabeth. Henry was bitterly disappointed, but Anne was young. Other pregnancies would come. 1534, Anne miscarried. January 1536, Anne was pregnant again. But then Catherine of Aragon died at Kimbolton Castle. 5 days later, Anne miscarried. Witnesses reported the fetus was a boy, 3 to 4 months developed. Henry's reaction was cold. I see that God will not give me male children. God, not Anne. God was cursing him. Within months, Anne was arrested on false charges, adultery, incest, treason, evidence fabricated. She was innocent. Henry didn't care. May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn beheaded, probably 35 years old. Henry had Jane Seymour waiting. Quiet, obedient, married her May 30th, 11 days after Anne's execution. Jane got pregnant immediately. October 12, 1537, Jane gave birth to a son at Hampton Court, Edward, finally. After all the death, all the heartbreak, Henry VIII had a living son. Celebrations were massive, Te Deums in every church, bonfires across the country. Edward would be king. The Tudor line was secure. Jane Seymour died 12 days later. October 24, 1537, puerperal fever. Still, Henry got his son, his male heir. But Henry also had an illegitimate son. Born 1519 to Elizabeth Blount, Henry Fitzroy, son of the king. Henry VIII loved this boy, considered nomming him heir, gave him the title Duke of Richmond. Henry Fitzroy was healthy, athletic, intelligent, future looked bright. Then July 1536, same year Anne Boleyn died, same year Jane got pregnant, Henry Fitzroy fell ill. He died July 23, 1536, 17 years old, probably tuberculosis. Even a bastard son wasn't safe. Henry VIII married 3 more times, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr. No more pregnancies, just Edward carefully protected. Henry VIII died on January 28, 1547, 55 years old, so swollen with infection that legend says his coffin burst open during transport, fluids leaked out. He left 3 living children, Mary, Elizabeth, Edward. Only one male. Everything depended on little Edward. Edward VI was 9 when his father died, crowned at Westminster Abbey. Clever, pious, well-educated, Latin fluent, read Greek, debated theology. Everyone said he'd be a great king. For 14 years, Edward seemed healthy. Then 1552, he caught measles or smallpox. Either way, it weakened him fundamentally. By early 1553, Edward was coughing constantly, losing weight, developing sores. Court physicians tried everything. Mercury, arsenic, experimental remedies that probably made things worse. Diagnosis: tuberculosis, possibly pneumonia leading to blood poisoning. The descriptions are horrific. Black phlegm, body wasting, limbs swelling, skin discoloring. Edward knew he was dying. June 1553, desperate to prevent Catholic half-sister Mary from undoing his Protestant reforms, Edward wrote his device for the succession, tried to name Lady Jane Grey as heir. But he didn't live to see how it played out. He died at Greenwich Palace July 6, 1553, 15 years old, the same age Prince Arthur died, both Tudor princes, both 15, both respiratory illness, both dead before manhood. Edward VI had no children, never married. The Tudor male line was extinct. 3 generations. Henry VII, multiple sons, only one survived to adulthood. Henry VIII, multiple sons, only one survived infancy. Edward VI, no sons, died too young. The dynasty continued through daughters, Mary then Elizabeth, but the male line carrying the Tudor name, over. The curse achieved its goal in 68 years, but did it stop, or did it follow the blood wherever it went? Henry VIII's sister, Mary Tudor. Beautiful, charming. 1514, married to King Louis XII of France. He was 52, she was 18. Marriage lasted 82 days before Louis died. Mary did something scandalous, secretly married Charles Brandon, Duke of Suffolk, Henry VIII's best friend, without permission. Henry forgave them eventually. Mary and Charles had 4 children, 2 daughters, Frances and Eleanor, 2 sons, both named Henry. First Henry Brandon, born around 1516, died around 1522, approximately 6 years old, cause unknown. Second Henry Brandon, born around 1523, died around 1534, 10 or 11 years old, cause unknown. 2 sons, both named Henry, both dead before 12. Mary Tudor died June 25, 1533, 37 years old. Same age Elizabeth of York died, possibly heart disease, tuberculosis, or cancer. Her daughters survived. Frances lived to 42, Eleanor to 28, but those boys named Henry, gone. Over 5 generations, male heirs either died young, had no children, or were barred from the throne. The pattern repeated. Male Tudor Stuart descendants rarely survived to pass on their line. Let's step back. Analyze like investigators. Tudor sons died young or without heirs, while daughters survived longer. Many reached old age. Just bad luck. High infant mortality was normal, right? Except other noble families didn't have this pattern. The Howards, Seymours, Dudleys, they lost children too, but not at this rate. Not generation after generation of male heirs dying before 30. So what's the explanation? First possibility, genetics and disease. Tuberculosis was rampant, killed Arthur, killed Edward VI, probably Henry Fitzroy. No cures, no antibiotics, poor sanitation, crowded palaces, disease spread easily. But girls got tuberculosis too. Why did daughters survive at higher rates? Genetic factors. Royal families married relatives to keep bloodlines pure. Inbreeding concentrates harmful genes. If the Tudor line carried a genetic disorder on the Y chromosome, only sons were affected. Daughters carry it but don't show symptoms like hemophilia. Syphilis theory. Some historians believe Henry VIII contracted it, causes stillbirths, miscarriages, and infant deaths. Passes to children in the womb. Male fetuses are more vulnerable. Environmental poisons. Lead in pipes and dishware, mercury in cosmetics, arsenic in tapestries. The Tudor court was toxic. Male fetuses are more sensitive to environmental damage. Medical science offers explanations. Disease, genetics, poison, all plausible, but why so consistent? Why follow this family for generations, even spreading to Scotland, cousins? Second possibility, belief created reality. Tudor England believed in curses, absolutely. Buckingham meant it literally. Belief has power. When you believe you're cursed, you act differently, and maybe the Tudors knew about it too. Henry VII's paranoia after his son died and the obsessive control. His wife Elizabeth getting pregnant again in her mid-30s, desperate for another heir after Arthur's death. Maybe she suspected. Henry VIII's obsession drove him to madness, destroyed marriages. Executed 2 wives, broke from the Catholic Church. His stress and paranoia created real consequences. Pregnant queens lived in terror. Catherine punished herself after miscarriages, fasting until her body broke. She believed God was angry. Her self-punishment reduced her ability to carry children. Grief and guilt compounded medical problems. Anne Boleyn lived in constant fear. When she miscarried, she knew her life was over. Stress of producing an heir under death threat couldn't help pregnancy. Jane Seymour had one job, deliver a son. She did. Died 12 days later, possibly because doctors focused on saving the baby, not the mother. Male heirs faced impossible expectations. Perfect, strong, healthy. When Edward VI showed illness, physicians subjected him to brutal treatments. Mercury, arsenic, bloodletting. These cures probably killed him faster than tuberculosis. The belief in a curse became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Fear of losing sons created conditions where sons were more likely to die. This is the cultural curse. The weight of dynasty. No supernatural power needed. Human psychology was deadly enough. Third possibility, something darker. I can't prove curses are real, but I can't prove they aren't. The accusations against Elizabeth Woodville and her mother weren't random. People truly believed these women had power, dangerous power from secret knowledge. When Elizabeth's sons vanished, her grief must have been unbearable. Living the rest of your life not knowing what happened, not seeing their bodies, no proper burial, no closure, just endless uncertainty. What would that grief do? What words might escape in darkest moments? Medieval mothers had one thing the powerful feared, the ability to speak curses people believed might work. A wronged mother's curse was considered especially potent because her suffering was pure and righteous. Whether Elizabeth spoke such words or not, the idea existed. People believed it possible. Then, the pattern began. Edward of Middleham at 10 years, Edmund at 16 months old, Arthur at 15, baby Henry at 52 days, more stillbirths, infant deaths, teenage princes struck down before fathering children, sons died, daughters lived, just as a curse about male heirs would predict. For 120 years the pattern held: coincidence, medical tragedy, genetic bad luck, or something that defies explanation. I can't help but feel it's karma. To kill children, innocent boys of 12 and 9, is the kind of sin that even medieval England understood as unforgivable. And yet it happened. Elizabeth Woodville never got to see her sons again. She never held them, never knew if they were alive or dead. Could you imagine that kind of grief? A mother trapped between hope and despair, unsure whether to wait for her boys or mourn them. For me, that loss is the real curse. Richard III, who probably ordered the prince's deaths, lost his own son at 10. He never recovered. The Tudor male line dying out in 3 generations feels like history's way of balancing the scales in its cruel way. Henry VIII's sons were taken by disease, misfortune, or cruel fate. Edward VI died at 15. But the real tragedy is not this. Life and death are from God. Once it comes into this world, it must have to leave sooner or later. The real tragedy is Henry's paranoia, which made him obsessed with his son. The paranoia that killed many of his wives and other people. He has healthy daughters who proved themselves better monarchs than his son. But Henry never cared for his daughters. They were forced to live a life full of terror and uncertainty. For me, this is the real curse. Perhaps the greatest curse wasn't in Elizabeth Woodville's words. It was in the choices these men made. In the end, the true curse was never the sons who died, but the lives poisoned by those who should have protected them. So what do you believe? Divine curse, genetic tragedy, or cultural self-destruction? Drop your theory in the comments below. And if you want to know the real mystery of the princes in the tower, hit the link here. For more royal mysteries where history meets the unexplained, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. These stories need to be told. Until next time, history lovers, stay curious.